Alright, hello everybody. I'm going to be doing a second tour today since some of you weren't able to make it and the other video kind of got a little jacked up. So I felt like I might as well just do a second one. Anyways, let me switch my screen over to that. Alright, so you guys should see the in-game Starcraft 2 menu. Alright, so first off, I'm not going to go over too much here just because some of it is going to be changing, but we have all these different like modes that you can choose from. There's casual, there's official, there's custom and blitz, and this is kind of a lot because there's like for each mode there's a different team setup. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different or 6 different team setups for each mode, and that kind of limits how many modes I can have in the long run because there's a limit that Blizzard has on it. So instead I'm going to be condensing it down into just having like official mode, casual mode, and all that because the map actually already like changes the map and changes like who's playing depending on like if depending on how many players there are in the game. Like if there's 5 players, it'll automatically default to free for all. If there's 6, it'll go to 2v2v2. And then, if you have your full 8s, then it depends on, if someone chooses 4v4 or the regular 2v2v2v2. So yeah, that's going to be condensed down. But yeah, for now I'm just going to have official, casual, and then the custom, of course, and stuff like that. There's a few differences between official and casual. Casual is more geared towards the everyday kind of public player, who wants to do it more casually instead of like doing it more like a hardcore competitive style. So there's certain differences, like when a player dies, they automatically become an observer. The game speed is very slightly slower. Normal's actually fast, like normal fast in StarCraft 2, and faster is fast. I might change that just because it is a little bit confusing, but anyways. We have our different mineral types. There's like in Zone Control 4, there's the regular pickups that you can get that kind of increase over time, and you get more per amount that you pick up, basically, as the time goes on. In Zone Control 5, I've introduced mineable minerals. And mineable minerals, like you send your SCV over, it's, it mines the mineral and you get money. So you kind of need to control that zone where the mineral is in order to reap its rewards, and so you're kind of denying your opponent from getting it. And then there's another thing called debris, which is basically the same thing as the mineable mineral, except it gives you less minerals. It's basically more of something that gets in your way. So you can choose to like kill it with your marines, or you can mine it slowly for a little bit of money, etc. And in casual mode, it's right now I've set it to pick up minerals and mine minerals, so it's just like this easy thing. Whereas in official mode, it is set to mine and debris, so you get debris stuff and mines, and there's no pick up minerals. Also, minerals only spawn in the lane, so you and the person that you're laning are kind of fighting over the early game minerals until you like until you destroy them or whatever. Moving on, there's a toggle for feats. This is something that you can always toggle just because, like for some people, the way like some of the feats like require a lot of CPU power, like keeping track of when people stim and stuff like that. So you can turn it off if it lags you or for other people's sake. There's rewards that are normally hidden. I should say normally shown, but on official mode they are automatically hidden, and you can't change that, just so that it doesn't give anybody away or anything like that. And then there's things like I've introduced SCV abilities and global perks, and those are in the game right now. Right now they're just set to completely random. The SCV abilities, I might have it so players like choose one of 3 and they get 3 of, say, like a dozen different abilities, and they have to choose one of those, between one of those 3 to pick and use. And then I also plan to have a third one actually that I'm gonna dub personalities, where players kind of pick like it's the same kind of thing where there's like say like a dozen different personalities. The game chooses like say like 3 or 4 of them, and then the player picks of those 4. So it's like there's some sense of random ability, but then you also have a choice between what what the game gives you to choose from. And so the personalities are going to be more like things that help, or that basically help you out. Like for example, your towers are 50% cheaper, or your nukes are 50% cheaper, or just like random tidbits like that. It's kind of like you're choosing like a if this was like a town builder, then it'd be like you're choosing a mayor, and they have a set thing that set bonus that they give you. And these 3 things are just to like add some like random ability to the game to keep it kind of spiced up a little bit as people keep playing it. There's other things like in official it'll be scored, but in casual mode it will not be scored. So it's again for the casual player that doesn't really care about score, just wants to play the game, type of thing. And then in custom you can choose whatever you want for these different things. You can there's different, well, and for 1v1, 2v2, and so on, you can like change up how the starting positions are. Like you can go like it's probably kind of hard to see, but like inside, outside, like basically do your bunker, like in a 1v1, does your bunker spawn in the position that's close to them or further away? So inside would be closer, so that they're basically the same lane distance as normal, or outside would be like the 2 further away bunkers. And just like little things to switch it up a little bit if you choose to. 1v1s and 2v2s also have something called hazards, which depending on the mode, like there can be, like on casual mode there's obstructions only, where there's like pathing stuff that blocks you, like a debris field that slows down units that are walking over and stuff like that. Harmful would be like explosive barrels that you can like push around, or toxic barrels that like have a have like an AoE damage per second when units are in it, type of thing. I might have more things. I might remove that. I'm not 100% sure on that quite yet as I continue working on this thing. But yeah, then there's other, so you can change all the stuff in custom. You can also change some additional options if you really want to, like you can turn the scoreboard like completely off, type of thing. I don't know if anybody would want to do that, but if someone wants to try out a game where there's literally no scoreboard, then that would be the thing to do. You can turn hidden names on. By default they're off. Chat, same thing, default's off, but you can turn it on if you want. Camera limit is set to 48 for all the different modes, but in custom you can change it to whatever you like. You can go as high as 84 if you want. If people really wanted, I could go even higher, but I think 84 is pretty darn up there, so I don't really know if people are going to want that. You can do fixed starting location if you want. Bunker shield, something new that I decided to do. I made the game a little bit more volatile, and the bunkers die a little bit quicker. So I ran into the problem of like, well, the first bunker can like really quickly be picked off then if someone does something wrong, and I didn't want it to be quite that volatile right away. So I decided, okay, what if your starting bunker started with a shield? So in custom mode you can set the amounts of shield that you start with. Blitz mode is basically custom mode, except for there's even more options. There's like, you can change like starting minerals, income, bounty, how many minerals you get per mining, how many nukes you start with, how much bounty the nukes give, and then you can even change things like the game speed. So time variance is basically, it's basically game speed. It's like however fast everything happens. Animations, cooldowns, weapon attacks, movement speed, like absolutely everything. And you can set this to some crazy. You can set it to 5 times if you want to just have like a really crazy game. I was thinking in the future even to have like a chaos mode where you don't set any of the stuff and the game just randomizes like all these different settings. So it's like complete chaos of like what are you even gonna get type of thing. It could be really fast, could be a little bit slower, like who knows. But yeah, for now, for this test, I'm just gonna set it to, let's set it to casual. And I'll just set it to, you guys kind of know what the 2v2v2v2 board looks like. I added an extra square each side. Actually, yeah, I will go with that. I was gonna say I might just show off some of the other maps, but I think for demonstration purposes, I will just stick with this. And I'm just gonna fill in some AI, just so, you know, just for testing. So let's get this started. Yeah, and normally you're not going to be able to fill AI, but I decided to allow that just to, you know, for testing so I can show off some stuff. So the game starts and it shows you immediately what settings were chosen. And if you ever like forget or you want to look at it again, there's a little bit of a thing down here that tells you, you can just hover over it and see that. Yeah, and if this is kind of annoying to have on here, like if you keep putting your mouse over here and, you know, accidentally and covering up your screen and stuff, there are some crazy options I've allowed. So one of the options is this button tooltip, like hover thing, and the hotkey is Alt-L, which you can click, and it actually turns this off, so it doesn't hover anymore. And it turns off the hover for the scoreboard. I'll get to that a little bit later. And it basically gets rid of the button hovers. Like there's no tooltips for the options button or the map button or any of that stuff. But yeah, again, looking at the options, there's a lot to choose from here. So you have your panel at the top here, and it shows you all these different things about your team. You know, that's in zone control. That's kind of standard nowadays. But there's different things you can turn on and off. Like you can turn research on, turn it off. You know, set it to basically however you want to do it. You know, you share with your team with the buttons. Like if I had more teammates, like say it was a 4v4, it would have, you know, each player here and it would show a button for each of them. But you can share control this way. In official mode, you can only share with control. You can't share spending, but in casual, you can set that to what you want. Oh, I did set it to casual. Okay, so that's a bug then. It's supposed to allow you to, or maybe I have it the opposite, where in casual you can't, but in official you can share control. Either way, that's something I'm going to be looking at. I'm going to be looking at all these different options and things. But yeah, if you don't want this position here, you can change it to the top left. You can change it to the bottom right. You can actually get rid of this UI as well if it's in the way. Like with this UI mode button, the command is Alt-U, so you can actually do this on the fly and set it to whatever you want. So obviously you have your standard and it has all the different buttons that I added on the sides here. You can do it again, get rid of those extra buttons if you remember the hotkeys. You can, whoops, that's too far. You can make it minimal. I'm gonna get this out of the way for a second. You can make it rather minimal and just have like a few units down here that you can click, your command card. The units control tab here can actually be toggled off in the Starcraft 2 options, so I didn't add a button for that. Or you can go even more minimal. So this is the most minimal, except you do have some buttons here. You can click it again and get rid of those buttons. So now it's like as minimal as possible. But actually you could turn off the you can turn the panel tab off too. You can change the scoreboard up here to whatever you want and turn it off if you really wanted to. You can do things like change the zone color. Well, I should actually rename this because it's not really the color anymore. It used to be that it would toggle between like a high resolution and low resolution thing, so that if you set your graphic settings lower, you could still have some coloring because the high resolution one doesn't show up. But I think I changed it. I switched around the graphical settings so that it does show up a bit now. So instead of that, I decided to have it so it shows buildable terrain. So, normally you can't build in every little spot on the map. You can only build in a 4x4 square. That's what you got here. Or you can turn this coloring off completely if you want. And I think this is the best mode for your eyes. It lets like colors really pop. It just so happens my team is black and gray, or black and white actually. And my Marines are actually torn because that's I was setting the rewards with the last tour I did, and I didn't reset it back to default, so that's why they're torn. Whoops. You can also set the brightness of the screen if it's too dark for you. That was something that's when I initially made this map, people are saying it's too dark. I think I've brightened it up since, but either way, there's still a brightness option. Personally, I think the darker is better, just for your eyes, for eye strain and late night playing and all that. So I like to play it a little bit darker, but I totally get it if people want it a bit brighter. Whoops. Okay, so here's the defaults. Turn those panels back on. You can change the visibility, or the what's it called, the transparency of the panels up here. It also kind of changes the transparency of the menu, but I can change it so that the menu is a lot dimmer. I can also change it so that, well, actually, yeah, there we go. You can change the text and all that up here for the panel as well. If you find that, like, say you want it minimal, but like you think this is a little too it pops for you a little bit too much, you can dim it out a little bit. But yeah, personally, I like to play it a little bit in the middle here, just like that. And then you have your scoreboard options. You can do the same thing with the scoreboard with the text. If you want it, you can have it kind of minimal so that it doesn't show up as much and all that. So for the sake of this test, I'm going to put it back to the regular UI mode here. Turn off. I don't particularly like research on, but I can understand people might like it. Let's see, text. Okay, that's a bug. That should be a lot darker. I'll have to look at that again. But anyways, looking at the scoreboard now, we have all your different colors. It's separated by team. You saw that you can separate it by player only if you want. I was thinking about having a mode where it removes the players and it has only the teams. I don't really know how helpful that would be, but just to like minimize the scoreboard a bit if players choose to do that. Unlike Zone Control 4, there's also like you can hover over the score and see like a breakdown of the score. So you can see like, how many units or how much score a person's earned from unit kills or structure kills or from income or collected / mined. You can see like how much their nuke got, how many SCVs they've killed, and then it also is like true score. The total earned is basically the total earned. It shows you what you've gotten from all the categories above, but then it also does like the losses and elimination. And elimination is when someone is killed off and they have like extra buildings sitting around that die because they lost their last bunker. Then that's subtracted there, and then strength should equal basically 0 at that point. There's also below strength there, it shows feed, and that is just to like keep track of like, okay, this person has really been feeding on this person, this other this person's been losing a lot of Marines, they've been doing bad micro or whatever, and it kind of just shows like a little bit more of a breakdown than just regular pluses and minuses. Alright, so the other thing about the UI, or the other UI thing, I guess, is the minimap button. You can open the map to make it bigger, and actually on different UI settings, it gets basically fills the screen except for where the unit information is at the bottom. And you can do things like issue orders, like movement orders or attack. Obviously you can't box select, so you can't really micro so well with this, but you can still like move units around and like all that fun stuff.
Roger that. Keep your shirt on, Sparky.
Alright, going back. So then also you have the option to change how your hotkeys are. So normally you select your Marines with the 1 key, you select your bunker with the 2 key, your SCV with 3, and so on and so forth. But here you can change it. If I want my army on 2 and my bunkers on 1, this sounds kind of crazy to me, but you can do that.
Who wants some?
If you see down here, the 2 is actually a 6 because I play regularly where I like my bunkers on 6, so I have my hotkey layout set to change 2 and 6 so that the bunker's on 6, and then 2 is free so that I can do things like Alt 2 to deselect a unit.
By the numbers, boys.
I'm going to change this back because it's driving me crazy, but...
By the numbers, boys. Armed and ready, been waiting.
Right, 2 is 6. Okay. I was like, why isn't it working? Because 2 is 6. Okay. But yeah, you can change out Marines, Reapers, Marauders, Ghosts. You can put them on different hotkeys. So if you want like your Marines to be attacking the fronts, and then you also have some Reapers, you can put the Reapers on a different hotkey and hit 2, and then like use them to flank a little bit easier than you would normally, and just do like weird stuff like that. You can also, there's a hotkey for this for opening this menu. It's Alt K. So you can do it like on the fly if you wanted to, like, say it's early game you want it one way and it's late game you want it another way. Well, you can just, quickly switch it over, close it, and continue on with your game. So then there's also the stats, and I don't know if you guys can see the the text, but it's separated out into lane rating and global rating. So there's 2 separate ELO ratings here. There's the lane rating. Well, so global is basically what your normal ELO is. Like if you win or lose. If you win, it goes up, and if you lose, it goes down. It goes up and down depending on the room and all that. Here it actually also calculates how strong your cross is compared to their sides. So if you have a stronger cross, your chances of winning are going to be lower than if you have a weaker cross. And so the game will award you more ELO if you win a game with a weak cross, type of thing. Lane rating is basically you against your lane. So in this case, I'm against Hot Pink. My lane rating would go up or down depending on if I win or lose against him. And that's determined 10 minutes into the game. So if I'm doing really well, then I'll win my lane and whoops, didn't mean to move them. I'll win my lane, and it'll basically add or subtract from your lane rating. 25% of whatever you earn in your lane, you also gain as a global rating. So it influences a little bit. You also have a reward. If you win your lane, you get, I think it's 500 minerals. If you tie your lane, then you get 250, and if you lose, you get nothing. So it's just like an incentive to play your lane. I don't really know if you really need an incentive, so I might remove that. I'm not sure. There are other minerals that spawn that are kind of already an incentive, so I'm not sure if I'm going to keep it or not, but it's there right now. And then, yeah, win-loss ratio for both lane rating and global rating. I don't have a rating here just because it's my first game on this map, and everyone's at 1000 ELO, at the starting ELO. So then during the lane time, there's actually, I might have accidentally given it away earlier, I'm not sure, but during the first 10 minutes of the game, obviously we're past that already with this test, but there's a bit of a like a force field around the center that you can't pass through. Basically, you can't go through center until the lane time is over. You know, so it's very strictly like you against your lane for the first 10. If you kill them in that 10, then you know, you automatically win the lane. Otherwise, it depends on the points. So at the start of the game, there's a mineral. At the start of the game, it shows you a like it shows you the timer up here, and it also shows you your lane rating. And the lane rating not the rating, the score that you have in lane. So your lane is basically, I believe I just have it set so it's like, you know, like across here, all the way across. And if you kill units in that area, whether it be defending your ally or attacking your opponents, and then if your opponent, you know, is all the way back behind his bunker, you can attack his ally. But that all contributes to score. And things like nukes, like if you throw a nuke early, that does not counts towards score. If you throw turrets, that counts against you because of the cost of the turret. Same thing with a cancel. If you cancel your bunker, it counts against you. You know, so it's like you really want to try to keep your stuff together for that sake. I'm not sure how much of this is going to stay in. Like that might not be necessary, type of thing. But that was kind of one of my initial thoughts with Zone Control 5, was to have this like whole lane thing and yada yada. But anyways, let's move on. So besides the force fields for the map, you have, you know, obviously your shrubbery that blocks vision. The watchtowers are laid out a little bit differently. Obviously in Zone Control 4 there's just one in the middle, but here the lanes are actually one size larger, so that kind of complicates things. So I had to, you know, figure out what to do with the extra squares in the middle, and I decided to just put it up this way. So the watchtowers give you a little bit less vision than normal. Let's just move over there. So I'll show you. So obviously it's not like a gigantic view, and you know, even if I control two of these towers, it doesn't completely show this Marauder square, but it shows pretty deep otherwise. So you know, it's just like the map's bigger, and I want you know, unit vision to play a bigger role basically. Since there's a mineral here, I'll show you the mineral mining a little bit.
Give me orders?
They just kind of, well, actually these fall from the sky, and then the ones you pick up pop up from the ground. But yeah, just your SV goes and mines it. It does stop for a second, and then it'll automatically go back to mining. But if you're really quick and you're really on it, you can tell your SCV to go back to mining sooner than regular. So it's just like a little tiny quirk that'll give you a slight edge type of thing if you're quick enough and remember to do that.
Who wants some?
But yeah, otherwise the minerals are pretty much the same. There's like a smaller version. There's actually 5 tiers. Like regularly there's was it blue, gold, and then pink, I believe. Here there's actually, instead of the 3 tiers, there's 5. There's teal, blue, golds, pink, and then red. Or is it red then pink? Either way, 5 tiers, and they just keep getting, they basically double in size each time, each tier. So the small teal ones are only 25, but then the blue ones are 50. Or actually I might have changed it. It might be 50 for the teal ones and 100 for the blue ones now, and then 200 for the gold ones and all that. Let's see, upgrades. Upgrades are a little bit different. They cost more. Like, if you guys can read that, it says it's 75 minerals to upgrade. And, you know, normally it's 25, and then the next one's 50, and then the third one is 75, and so on and so forth. But here I decided to have it start at 75, and then go up by 75 each time. But the difference is, each upgrade gives you twice as much. So each time I click this armor thing, it actually gives me 2 armor. And the way that it actually maths out, that 2 armor each time at, increase, with the upgrade increasing 75 each time is actually cheaper than having it be 1 armor and going up by 25 each time. It actually saves you money in the long run. The reason why I did it this way is because I want each upgrade click to matter. I don't want it to be like, oh, you have 4 movement speed and I have 5, or even if I have 6, like it doesn't seem like that big a difference normally. So here it actually makes a much bigger difference. And so like, you get the movement speed and it's, it's like this bigger jump of now it does more. Building stuff, pretty similar, except it's a little bit more than 2.5, or I should say it's a little bit more than 2.5 for the armor. Armor is 2.5. Building regen is plus 40% or plus 40 regen a second. I believe it's normally 35 for each, 1 upgrade costing 25. So here it's 40, but it costs 75 per thing. So it's not double like the other stuff. It's actually significantly less than normal. Bunker capacity is plus 2. Also for bunkers start off with 6 capacity instead of 4. And that's just just to help with the fence a little bit, because bunkers are far more squishy than they used to be. Same thing with the bunker range. Like normally bunkers give +1 range for anything that's inside. Here it gives +2. So it definitely awards defending players that are able to defend, that have units there to defend. It's a little bit, tiny bit easier. But if you're not there, it's a tiny bit harder because the bunkers themselves have less hit points. And so if you don't have units there to defend it, the bunker's going to quickly go down. The research, actually I should explain this first. I decided to expand on the research. So the research actually is a separate building now. You hit tab to go over to it. So you got the upgrader, then you have the tech lab. So the tech lab has all this different research. I changed it up a little bit. I might change this up again, or just add to it. I might add another ghost upgrade. So I've decided to have 2 upgrades per unit type. So Marines have combat shields and stim pack. Marauders have the stim pack plus the concussive shells. The ghosts just have high-powered rifles for now. I'm gonna have a second one. I just haven't decided on what it is going to be yet. But I've kind of determined that I've wanted it to be more of like an active, like 1 active ability and 1 passive one. So the Marines, they're active obviously, as well as the Marauders, they have stim pack. Reapers don't have stim pack, but they have nitro packs, which basically are the movement speed buff. Like it's not like a set, they just always have it. It's instead, I'll research it and I'll build a bunker here. I'm gonna cheat to get that done really quickly.
Yes, sir.
Just to show you guys. Obviously these cheats aren't going to be in the actual game, it's just for testing and demonstration purposes. But yeah, so I have my Reaper here with normal speed. I got the nitro pack, so now I can use it. So it's just like a nice burst of speed, but it's not for forever, and it has a cooldown. So it's similar to the stim pack. It doesn't hurt you, but it does have a cooldown. So you can use it to like quickly just like outflank someone or whatnot. Again, what I was saying before with the Marines fighting each other, then the Reapers can like go over and flank and do some like crazy stuff like that. Otherwise, the Reaper also has D-class explosives, which are basically the anti-building attack. They don't have it enabled by default. You have to research it. And I think that just makes puts everything on more of an equal footing. Instead of Marines having to, but not that you have to, but like you need to buy stim pack or stim packs, and that costs a lot. And Reapers don't have that cost. They have a small, speed boost upgrade. That costs very little. So I decided to go with, having the speed boost being active, and then just also having the anti-building attack. So Reapers will normally attack buildings like this. With D-class, they'll start throwing their grenades and doing extra damage. The damage is very small just because it is one unit against a mineral field.
Bring it. You gonna give me orders?
But yeah, I think that just kind of evens it out a little bit.
Fair enough.
Units give a little bit more bouncy as well. Should go over here and fight him. Let's put it on defaults, or let's see, use defaults. There.
Armed and ready.
So Marines, they give +8. I think Reapers give +9. Marauders, I think, are at 10. I want to say. I'm not 100% sure. It's been a minute since I've like said all this stuff, and I'm probably going to keep futzing with it. One of the next things that I'm going to be working on is just like unit balance, as well as you know, how to make Zone Control 5 different than Zone Control 4. Because right now I've kind of designed Zone Control 4, or I'm sorry, Zone Control 5 to be pretty similar to Zone Control 4, except with some changes, like some additions, you know, a little rebalancing and stuff like that. But you know, now that I have a lot of the other bugs and things worked out, now I can move on to like thinking about how to make this different than Zone Control 4. Oh yeah, I forgot to look at the global modifiers with you guys. But yeah, the global modifier this time was no force fields, which obviously there isn't. I mean, I didn't really show it off when it was supposed to be there, but yeah, when that's the modifier, then there is no force field. There's other modifiers like no shrubs. You can have modifiers like SCVs don't need to be presents to build something. Like they just have to like be there to start it, and then they can go do whatever else they need to do. There's other things like, oh, you know, tanks cost twice as much, or they cost half as much. Or actually, no, I'm sorry, it's not twice as much. It's 150% or 75%. So, you know, it's like 50% more or 25% less. And then that can also be like new SCVs cost more or less, or nukes cost more or less, and things like that. Speaking of nukes, actually, so here, actually before I get to that, let me go over the command card first. So the command card is set up a little bit differently. Like you're used to having like all your buildings down here, and then you have like a button for nuke and all that. I decided to use submenus so that I could expand upon it. So you have your build menu, you hit, you know, just like regular Starcraft, you hit B, and then you can build different structures and whatnot. The nuke menu, you have to hit D, and you can change these hotkeys to whatever you want in the Starcraft options. But yeah, you hit D and then you hit E for nuke. So it's kind of, it also acts kind of as like a safety thing, like so you don't accidentally hit N while you're trying to build, or actually M is right next to it, and M is the map, so you know it's just an extra layer of protection. But yeah, it's pretty fast to just do DE really quick, like, you know, not that big a deal, I don't think. But yeah, besides nukes, you also have, and I might expand upon this, but you also have strike missiles. So strike missiles are basically the same as a nuke, except it's higher damage and smaller radius. So they're a little bit more like anti-tank or anti-bunker type of thing. Like if you get a bunker down to half health, and then you can, like, you know, use a strike missile and just kill it outright type of thing. They do cost quite a bit, but they are a little bit less than the nukes. It also gives more reason to like do things like split your tanks. And, you know, like clump tanks are actually really strong together, but yeah, I think it's important to have certain things, like certain micro tactics like splitting your tanks, I think is really important to have. Yeah, if you accidentally hit the wrong menu, you can, like, you hit B, you can hit B again to go to the regular, you know, the regular SCV menu. But if you also hit B and then you want to nuke right away, you can still hit D and then E really quick. So yeah, D opens this, and then if you hit D again, it actually closes it. Or you can hit B, and B opens the build menu. You know, so you can, you know, all these different menus are pretty interchangeable if you accidentally hit the wrong one for whatever reason. resource trading by default is off right now,
Outstanding.
but when it is on, there's like the button shows up here. Instead, it's like a bigger button, so it's a lot easier to click, type of thing. Like, and there's actually a hotkey for it.
Roger that.
I believe it's Alt-C, but I might be mistaken. Obviously, right here it's turned off because that's the defaults now that I've chosen to go with. These are the really big mineral fields that you can mine towards like this part of the game.
You gonna give me your...
But yeah, there's other things like
What's going on?
in order to build nukes and stuff, you need a heavy supply. So heavy supply comes from heavy supply depots or heavy munition depots. And I haven't really set the times and stuff for this yet, but yeah, there's one you can upgrade it 3 times. Supply depot you can upgrade 3 times. Here's tier 2. Here's tier 3. Still lower tier 3. If you no longer want a building, you can decommission it. You can only decommission when there's no enemy units around, it hasn't been attacked recently, stuff like that, but then it decommissions. And you know, once it's done decommissioning, it creates this scrap pile or the salvage pile that you can mine for minerals. The salvage pile is equivalent to half the total cost of what you're salvaging. So that, you know, that tier 3 supply depot I just salvaged just created all this scrap, and all of it combined equals to half the cost of that supply depot. But yeah, the heavy supply depot, this is the upgraded version, so it gives me +2. Starting off, you start with 2 heavy supply, and that's 1 for the SCV you start with, and 1 for the nuke that you start with. So if you, let me just start upgrading this so I can build the tank. But yeah, if you use the nuke, you're able to build a tank like right away without having to build one of these heavy supplies. But if you still have your nuke, then you need to build one in order to get a tank. And there's still some things I'm going to probably play around with that. Like right now, for example, like, you know, an SCV costs a heavy supply, but if the SCV, or if the supply dies, the SCV that you bought will still respawn and stuff like that. I'm thinking about removing that so that you can't, or that it doesn't respawn until you have it again, type of thing. But yeah, I'm just mining all this scrap. Upgrade this. Actually, I should build that. Can I build that tank yet? Not quite. Alright, so this is a tier 2 bunker, and I can upgrade it again to a tier 3. Each tier up on the bunker gives you, I believe it's 1 extra supply. And by the way, the supply depots, I should say the starting supply of the game is 30 instead of 50. I believe that with less units, it actually makes the game a little bit more intense, a little bit more about micro. It's a little bit easier micro instead of just having like a, you know, instead of just winning a fight because you have more type of thing. And units actually respawn a little bit quicker so that you can get back to fighting a lot sooner early on. And so with that, the supply depots also only give +3, and then each tier upgrade gives you another +3. So you get a total of +9, which obviously is less than the normal like 10 that you would get in Zone Control 4, but and it costs a lot more to do that. So it's like if you want supply, it's gonna cost you. Also, each tier of supply depot costs a bit more. Like the first one costs 300, this one's 400, and then the last upgrade is 500. And that's just so that it's you know, a little bit better for you to expand out than it is to upgrade. Like the upgrading your depot should be more of a last resort type of thing.
By the numbers, boys.
So to tell the difference between tier 1 and tier 2 and tier 3, your tier 1s have basically no halo. Your tier 2s have this like white, gray / silver halo, and then your tier 3s have this golden halo. They are a little bit stronger each tier, but the reason why I did this halo instead of having like a different unit model is because I have all the unit models being used for rewards. Let's see. You can't see rewards for other players except your teammates, but basically the other time I did the tour, I just ran, you know, I just gave myself a bunch of rewards to show it off a bit. But yeah, basically, they're like right now you have to do it command style, but eventually there will be a UI, you know, menu for it, so you can like select your rewards, so you can see which ones you have and which ones you would like to get. But yeah, for now it's just a command thing. So these are the rewards I gave myself. This is how you earn them. I should mention you can't earn them yet in the game, but for full release I plan to have it so that you can. I just haven't quite gotten there with implementation. But yeah, there's certain things like if you win 20 games you get Basic Victor, which gives you use Marine Mojan, gives you these Marines. There's things like lane elites. So it says have a lane loss ratio of greater than 50% playing at least 20 games. So there's like, you know, some fun stuff. Like some of them are really easy to get and some of them are really hard to get. And then there's and then there's like all these different things for different for all the different units, including the SCV. Use SCV Umojan. There's certain like sets as well. Like the Umojan one is a set. If you want to do a set, you just type the set. Like defaults as a set. Use Umojan as a set. Apparently I don't own the Ghost Umojan. Okay, that's fine. Use silver. Yeah, so there's just all these different things you can use. Does that work? Nope, only Marines. Okay. But yeah, just to spice up the game a little bit. Again, this can't be used on official mode. It's just the other like more custom modes. Official mode is scored, the other ones are not. In the future I might expand upon that so that there is like a low elo mode for players that are low elo but also want to play for elo. You know, so that you know, basically I would have it so that the game would kick high elo players out. Same thing with, you know, I would have a high elo mode as well where it kicks low elo players out. And there's no way to do that in the lobby. It would have to be during the game, but then the game can say like, oh, you know, these 3 players are kicked out, they're set to observe, and these other 5 players that, you know, meet the requirements will play, but now there's only 5 players, so we're going to set it to free-for-all. I'm thinking about doing something like that. I'm not 100% sure on that. I'll probably ask about that like with the community or something to figure all that out. I'm not going to go over like the exact details of units just because like all that's probably going to be changing. And I'm more than definitely going to be adding and changing how the buildings and towers and stuff work. But I will show off a little bit that there is stuff like you're used to your shield tower. The range is a little bit less. I believe that the shield towers as they are in Zone Control 4 are just way too big, especially for such a low cost. I feel like they're still useful if they're smaller, a smaller radius. But then you can upgrade the shield tower to be a bigger radius. And that's it's the same thing for the sensor tower. You can get a sensor tower, the radius is much smaller, then you can upgrade it to a radar tower that makes it much bigger. I should close that. There's other things like the vision, or I should start with the shroud generator. So the shroud generator and this black ring, they'll make it so that these, like whatever's under there will not show up under radar, except for the tower itself. So there'll be one blip on the radar for the tower, and then everything else, like my SCV, the shield tower, the radar tower, none of that stuff will show up on the radar. You know, so you can like surprise someone with tanks or whatever. It also makes it so that it actually denies line of sight for tanks and buildings. So like if you're trying to siege up something and, you know, the defending player puts up a shroud tower, now it's really hard to attack it with a tank. What you can do is like send unit, like you basically need unit vision, and the unit vision's a little bit shorter than normal, but you basically will need to like sacrifice units to like get that tank vision. Or if you're the tanking player, you can build a vision tower. So a vision tower in this larger radius basically denies the shroud tower and its true vision. So if I build one here, build it like it has this large ring of vision, and you can actually use that to see beyond the shroud, beyond the shrubs as well, and just things like that. But yeah, that's what I've decided to put in as of right now. Actually, I didn't go over the tank yet. Let's do that. Tank. The tank's a little bit different. It costs less. It's only 1,000, but you do have to research siege mode. And then it's, you know, like the tank is a little bit slower. It sieges up a little bit slower. Its range is a little bit less. These are things that are probably going to actually change, because I've recently thought a lot about what I'd like to do to make Sun Control 5 different, and I've decided to add a bunch of stuff. But yeah, so this might be a little bit different. It might be replaced with more of like a tech tree that you get like different options with. But yeah, in this version, you have your regular tank, and then you can upgrade your regular tank into a merc tank. Merc tank is basically, it's like a regular siege tank, except it has more range. It has a higher minimum range. It sieges up a little bit slower, but it also has 50% more splash. So if you think about it, it's kind of like having the obliteration ordnance upgrade. Except it's only on a per tank basis, and then there's also some other, you know, pluses and minuses that go with it. Let's see. Graphically, there are some changes. Like, I'm just gonna build Nuke 2. Might as well show off the what's it called? The strike missile. Again, I might be expanding upon that to have more types of missiles and things, but we'll see. But yeah, there's little differences. I'm gonna actually just turn off the shroud. But yeah, I'll show you the nuke. Unit sounds are a little bit different, by the way, too. It's kind of hard to tell when everyone's fighting, but. Yeah, the gunfire sound is not native to Starcraft. I forget if the Reaper one is or not, but so yeah, I don't know if you guys can hear the difference, but it is a different sound. So yeah, nuke, it shows this kind of crater for the nuke. This is on ultra settings, by the way. Strike turret or strike missile. Like that. Smaller crater. Siege of my tank.
This better be good. By the number,
I still have the obliteration ordnance thing in here, but it's probably going to change to something else. But the sound actually switches to a different sound. You guys can get the difference. It's a little bit different. It's supposed to be a bit heavier, a bit more like a destruction sound, like you really got hammered. I like it. Let's see, is there anything else? There's some other upgrades and stuff. I mean, it's pretty normal stuff, like the ghost upgrade. It increases damage, it increases range. That might be changing, so I'm not talking about it so much. There's the automatic reloader, which makes bunker units attack 30% faster. That's new. Not sure if I'll keep that or not. I might change for something else. Not sure. A lot of the unit balancing stuff is gonna possibly change. So. Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell because of the new crater, but the tanks leave a bit of a thing too, a bit of a crater. But yeah, that's on ultra settings. And you can actually change more in the options here. So there's some more changes when you change the shaders. Like if I go to medium, this should change something. Yeah, so the halos are not as crisp. They're just kind of blocky. I don't know, there's some other... What else does it do? Yeah, okay, so the shaders adjust the halo. You can change the effects, which changes the decals. So the terrain decals are these black things here between the squares. But I can change... let's actually set it to medium. I think high it's still the same thing, but if you set it to medium, then it's these white lines instead. So the black ones, like it's every between each square there's 2 of them. This one is only 1, and it's it's more of a preference thing too for that in particular. You can set effects to low to get rid of it altogether. Looks pretty ugly without it, so I wanted to have a low quality version that people could still use, and that's why I put that on the medium one. There's also textures. So textures, they don't just change, like they change the textures, like how high resolution the terrain and stuff is, but it also decreases how long the death animations linger. So if you have it on ultra and your computer's like really good, like the death animations take a while to but yeah, right now I have it on, I believe I set it to medium just a minute ago. Yeah, medium. So on medium they die off really fast, so you don't have a bunch of corpses sitting around. I'll set it back to ultra just so you guys can see the difference. I should just... Yeah, in ultra you got all these bodies everywhere. You can kind of see the remnants of the battle. Same thing with the tank craters and all that. And if you set it really low, you set it to low, that's basically going to turn the death animations off, but the units become shapes. So it's like, make it even easier on your graphics card. Yeah, shapes are if you want to have a lagless experience, that should help a lot. Yeah, it's like SCVs are jacks, the Reapers are these spherical things, or I should say circles. Marines are these triangles, and then the different tiers are like how high the shape is, how tall it is. I haven't quite put everything in there, like this tank isn't that, that's not the shape, at least not yet. But yeah. So then I'll go over some, what's it called, observer settings. Alright, so I'm going to decommission basically all my stuff to kill myself off. The observer stuff.
Armed and ready. What's eating it? Go ahead.
Alright, so now that I'm eliminated... Oops, I should set the graphic settings back so I don't have shapes every day. Or all day. And I don't really have an AI in. Like, I definitely have put that off type of thing. But I put some basic stuff in just for like testing purposes. So like now the AI will upgrade. And now I can send them to attack mid. I put simple stuff in like that just to test some stuff out. Shapes will disappear now that they should disappear. But yeah, basically as an observer, when someone does a nuke, it's a big thing that tells you. You can set things like you can observe certain teams or certain players. Double tapping on these different things will give you a different player. The way it's set up is like, so there's 1 and then there's Q, or 1 and 5. So that's this team, and then this next team is this one. Obviously I'm dead, so it doesn't show 1 for me. And then here's the pinks, and then top right, type of thing. And that shows only the stats for those players. You can set it so it's only on their vision. Or you can even have it follow their camera. Obviously, since this is a computer, they're not moving their camera around, so that's pretty static. And then there's stuff like the action camera, but I'm gonna quickly see... Okay, I forgot to set that to higher. I thought that would have set higher when I set it to extreme, but apparently not. Anyways, so you can hit F to show all the unit or all the the panel of everybody type of thing. The AI doesn't really want to search for it yet. But then yeah, there's other things like feats. So observers can see feats like as they happen. If someone earns a feat, it would show up. Type of thing. I might have actually turned off feats by accident. When I was looking at it earlier, I don't quite remember. But yeah, things happen. There's this action camera that you can use. Like if my screen's over here, that action camera just pulled my screen over to where the nuke was happening and showed you where that it was going on. Same thing with like when someone earns a feat, it'll go to their camera for a second, just like follow them around for a minute, and then go back to somebody else or whatever. The idea is it's supposed to kind of show you the action, see what's going on. It's not a perfect system yet. It doesn't detect like things like just a regular engagement. It doesn't care about that right now. If someone earns a feat or starts building or moves to the building or anything like that, it'll notify you. It'll move the camera there if you have it on action camera, and hopefully make the observing experience a lot cleaner and nicer. So you can just like sit there and chill. Everything. Anyways, I think that's pretty much everything that I wanted to go over. So if you guys have any questions, I suggest you type some in the chats. Yeah, I would prefer that we do stuff in the chat for questions. It makes it a little bit easier, I think, for me. And it also means that we have a record of it. Alright, questions. Yeah, so the mid vision with the 4 towers, yeah, it gets kind of. I'm gonna turn this constant noise off. By the way, if you zoom out, you can still hear noise. Yeah, with the 4 towers, it makes it interesting in middle. Just trying to get mid vision. It's basically like you're getting mid vision for your side instead of mid vision in general. So if you want to scout your cross getting a marauder bunker, you're going to have to use one of these 2 vision towers to see type of thing. So it's more imperative that players, scouts and look for stuff to deny it. But at the same time, marauders are not going to be crazy overpowered like it is in Zone Control 4. Like in 4, it's like it's supposed to kind of be like Marines kind of suck, and then Reapers are okay, and then Marauders are like quite a bit better, and then Ghosts are like the ultimate like game over. I have the ultimate unit. I think that's how it was supposed to be designed. But yeah, nowadays with the really fast upgrades, the Marauders are like just comparatively really strong, and people have a harder time denying it. Whereas if someone goes Ghost, it's like the room does a better job against Ghosts. Like the room will like rally against that person, whereas they don't really rally against a player that went Marauder anymore. So it's a little bit different, and I think the mid towers are gonna change how that plays out quite a bit. Let's see, looking for questions. Oh, okay. So yeah, Ziptan, if you're concerned about the tanks will definitely um, be balanced in a way where they're not going to be super strong. If you're thinking zone control 4 tanks against lower supplied armies, like yeah, the tanks would be ridiculously good. But the tanks are not going to be the same. They don't have the same range. They attack slower. Um, the splash radius is different. There's going to be a lot of changes with that, especially with what I am starting to plan out for the future of Zone Control 5. There's going to be some crazy differences. Okay, so Toxic Panda has a whole slew of questions. I'm going to just start from the top and go down. So he's wondering about the mineral spawns in lane only. He thinks encouraging mid control is important. I would agree. I mean, that's something I could, you know, dude, I haven't gotten to your stuff yet. I will. But yeah, I know you can unmute yourself as mod. I prefer that you don't, cause yeah, this is going on my channel. But anyways, yeah, so the mineral spawns in lane only, I decided to do that just so that it seems more fair, so that it's more fair for people. Mid, obviously there could still be some mineral spawns in the middle. I'm not terribly against that as I am with it being like, so the mineral spawns I actually forgot to mention. They spawn only in lane and they spawn with a rotational symmetry. So they all spawn like you saw there, like that mineral just popped up. This one just popped up and this one popped up at the same time. And that is rotationally symmetric. So it's really close to this player, but then their allied, their mineral's like all the way over here. So it's this rotational thing that isn't like perfectly even, but it's even in terms of the teams. But yeah, I just don't have them spawning in the middle because I feel like anyone that has middle control could very easily run away with it. And I want it to be like every man's game until you get killed off, basically. Like, be able to play, and like the better player should kind of win is what I hope to bring it to, type of thing. So the second question is, let's see. He's saying that the panels can be a source of confusion. Maybe make it kind of minimal and then make it expands for the sake of newer players. I mean, I don't feel like obviously right now there's like all these different players on here because I can see everybody, but as a player you only see yourself and your allies. And I don't feel like it's really that crazy. But yeah, maybe some of them I do turn off just initially just to make it a little bit less. Like, for example, research, you don't, maybe by default I could have that off, type of thing. I mean, zone control CE, it uses, I mean, it doesn't have the names, I guess. It has, and it doesn't have the sharing because it has a separate thing for sharing. But yeah, it has the resources, it has the units, it has the building upgrades, it has extra unit counts like tanks and nukes and stuff, so I suppose it would look more like this. Personally, I think the names kind of help with determining like whose it actually is, but I suppose the colors kind of do that anyways, so it's not really necessary. And that was actually more for like if the names weren't hidden, then it would show the actual player names as well. But yeah, that's something I'm willing to like look at too, for sure. Okay, so the hotkey system changes all the currents and the future. I can't really show it here since I'm dead, but yeah, if I change my army to 2, for example, it changes my current army that was on the 1 key over to 2, and then it also changes whatever spawns out of the bunkers on the 2. So if I set like, Marines to 1 and Reapers to 2, all the new Reapers would go to 2 and all the new Marines would go to 1. Yeah, it's a good question to clarify all that. Um, so the lane time 10-minute thing, I wouldn't worry too much about like if a tank pushes you, because I mean, maybe 10 minutes is too long. The idea behind it is basically to have it long enough so that it's like, the initial point up to when you're expanded, like and a little bit after, like when you're expanded. It shouldn't really, it shouldn't like they shouldn't really have a tank by then. If they do, then they have a tank by then. And if you're their lane, you should know about it and be able to do something about it. In Zone Control 4, I feel like the only real option against tanks is to have your own tank, basically. So what I always say is, like, get a tank or be tanked. And I don't necessarily like that. I want there to be other options. And if it comes down to that, like, there will be some changes. So it shouldn't come down to that. It should be, like, I want to have it so that you can play your way out of any situation. Just about. And that goes for any of the players. So if you get tanked and you can't do anything about it, to me that's on me. That's not on the player. But yeah, if you die during your lane time, then you lost it. But if 10 minutes is too long for that, then I might shorten it. That could be a thing. Third resource is heavy supply. It gets removed for dead players, but yeah, the third resource here, this is heavy supply. So red has 1 of 2, which means he has 1 SCV and no nukes. Let's go over to his base. Yeah, 1 SCV, no nuke. Brown has 2 of 2. So Brown, let's see, SCV with a nuke. So yeah. And to go over what I said before, the heavy supply is like, so SCVs, nukes, tanks, yeah, those 3 go towards heavy supply, and in order to get more, you need to have a heavy supply building. Okay, so the question is, why is mid bigger? Why make the map bigger but the army smaller? So the whole idea behind that is to make it so that it's harder to be out of position. I want the game to be more about, where is your army? If your army's all the way across the map and your opponent's army shows up at your bunker, I don't want you to be able to easily defend your bunker. I want you to basically lose that bunker in that situation. And so making the map bigger and making the units smaller makes it so it's harder and it takes longer to get back to defend an area. So what you do with your units is more important. The SCV mining quirk, is it intentional to allow skill expression? Yes. So I could make it so that the SCV, once it's mining, and it's done mining that chunk, it just immediately starts mining again. But I decided to have a slight delay so that if someone is really on it, they can shorten the delay and get they start mining it quicker, and so just kind of giving them a slight reward or slight benefit for doing so. So yes, skill expression. So the upgrade menu is something that's oh, I can't show it here because I'm dead again. But yeah, there's not that many upgrades as of right now, but that will be expanded upon. Same with the research, it'll probably be expanded upon. The firing animations you're not a fan of. Well, the firing animations are exactly the same, so I'm not sure what you're talking about exactly. Sound effects. Okay, these seem like more personal, like you don't like what I chose type of thing. Understandable. Not everyone's gonna like what I chose, I suppose. Okay, a lot of the rest of what you said seemed like personal opinions instead of like questions, so I'm gonna just skip over that. Uh, so Sunraider, I believe you had some question. I was looking for some questions. I saw his first. I mean, it's really hard to pick out questions when you guys type up a big paragraph. The GP or the frames per second performance differences between the graphical settings, I have not tested out yet. I have not. My computer is it sets a limit of 60 frames per second, and I have not changed that to be able to test that out yet. So I haven't done that yet. So yeah, in terms of the hex shapes and the square shapes, some of you have seen the hex maps. So this is the regular 2v2v2v2 map, and it's the same dimensions as regular Zone Control 4, except it has an extra line of squares on each side. So it's one square larger both ways. So instead of 6, or I'm sorry, instead of 8, like there'd be 4 here and then 4 here, you have this extra one to make it 9. So it's basically a 9x9 grid instead of an 8x8 grid. And that makes this interesting difference in the middle as well. Just gives you a little bit more room for expansion type of thing. I think, this still works. Oh, wait, did that work? Okay, it did work. It just is blanked out. So this is the 1v1 map. It uses the hexes. The decals and stuff are missing because we're not using this map right now, and so the game removes it for the sake of, having less things to keep track of. It's actually a really big map for 1v1. I might make it smaller, but I decided to do it this way, so it's a little bit more of a tug of war. And so you can make ground without being like at your opponent's base whenever you win a fight type of thing. Let's see, here's the 2v2 map. Again, it's not colored in or anything, so it's kind of hard to tell what the squares are, but like these 3 in the middle are the ghost squares. This one and this one are blank. These are the Marauder squares. Reapers are around that, and then Marines on the outside. But yeah, it's just a 2v2 hex map. It's set up so that the host can choose how it's set up, or it can be random, where you can be going the like north versus south kind of way, or you can go east versus west kind of way. So it's like longer or shorter. Just little changes to make the game, like each game, a little bit unique. And then here's the 3v3 map that you guys saw last time, with all the hexes and stuff. And the reason why I did it that way is because obviously in a 3-team game starting out, like the terrain, like squares don't really work that way. They don't work for that kind of scenario. So I needed to make a shape that was, that was divisible by 3, for sides instead of divisible by 2. Or actually 4 for the sake of 4 teams. Um, let's see. Okay, I'm gonna, for the sake of time, I'm gonna skip down a little bit to some of the lower questions. Yeah, you guys teased me about the about going over time. Yeah, I decided to go over a lot more of the unit stuff than I intended to. I kind of wanted to condense that down for the sake of the video getting like super long, but I felt kind of bad like leaving some of that stuff out, even though like a lot of it's going to change. I just felt like people would have too many questions about it. I decided not to go over augmentations because I'm probably going to take those out and exchange it for something different. But yeah, right now there is a scan like augmentation, like your bunkers basically like you can fortify them with more armor or you can put like a hardened shield thing on it so that they take less damage from tanks. There's a like scan sweep satellite dish augmentation. You can attach um, like an anti-unit gun to it, or you can attach an artillery to it to be anti-tank. But again, these things are probably going to change. They're probably going to be more standalone kind of buildings instead of augmentations for bunkers. I haven't entirely decided on, whether or not they're going to stay as augmentations or not. Um, yeah, so going back to the frames per second performance difference, so I more recently built a new computer, and it's hard for me to test the frames per second because it's maxed out. But in the past, when I initially put the graphics thing in, the graphical like shapes and stuff, I was using my old computer and I was doing it with much bigger battles. And yes, I would say that it definitely had a sizable difference in um, performance. Like it's much smoother in terms of performance. Um, so for the sake of um, like so, Toxic Panda is like asking if it's possible to change some of the lobby settings so that it is like in-game settings, so that the host picks after the game started. Um, Personally, I'm highly against that, just because as a player, I don't want to join a game and then have the host pick settings that I don't care for. I think that's just a big waste of time for players that only want to play a particular way. And so I'm a much bigger fan of having it as lobby settings so that players can look down the lobby settings and see like, oh yeah, fixed teams is off, random teams is on. I prefer that. I only want to play that way. So, I know for sure that this game's going to start with that in mind instead of being like as the game starts, it gets picked later. So that way I'm not sitting in a lobby that's just going to have settings that I don't like. So very specifically, I do not want in-game setting choices. Let's see. King Gods is asking if there is a 3v3v3v3 map. So Zone Control 4 CE basically has like instead of the regular 2v2v2v2, it's teams of 3. And people have really liked that. I haven't implemented that yet. That's something that I've thought about. I just haven't yet. Um, I don't have any space to make a large map for that within this map file. So, and that's one of the reasons why I didn't do it initially. But yeah, much further down the road, if I ever expand out and do more dependency related stuff, I can split the map into separate maps that uses different terrains. I would have to really figure that one out because there's a lot of like little quirks that come up with that issue or come up with that though. So I'm not crazy about doing it right now is all. In terms of just 3v3, like two teams, it's possible to do that as a 4v4. So 4v4 is played on so for free for alls or two teams or whatever. It depends on how many players are on the team. Like that's the map that's chosen. For 4v4 and 3v3, I believe I have it set for this map. Actually, no. I think I have 3v3 set on, let's see, this map. I think. If not, then that's what I plan to have, so that it's like 1 player, 2 player, and 3 players all on one team against the bottom 3 here, type of thing. So yes, it's either in there or it's planned to be in there, but either way, the game kind of chooses like, oh yeah, it's 2 teams, so we'll do 3v3. So that's basically the 4v4 option is for that as well. You guys have any more questions? Hopefully phrased in a question instead of a paragraph. It's kind of hard to sort them out. How valuable is the map to me right now? I mean, I would honestly say it doesn't have a value. It's priceless to me because I've worked on it so long. I don't think I could put a price to it. But hypothetically, if someone offered me $1 billion, I'd probably take it, you know? All right, last call for questions. All right, Panda, what do you got? Okay, so yeah, this is the big like final question I think that a lot of people want answered is when can I play it? How soon is beta testing or how soon is whatever? So I'll tell you this. I've hammered out a lot of the bugs. I've still got a few bugs to go for sure. Yeah, okay, so that works. Okay, sorry, I was just looking at that real quick. But yeah, a lot of the bugs are fixed. I've still know that there are some other bugs that I need to fix still. But mainly from here on out, a lot of it's going to be changing the units, changing balance and adding units and reforming the game so that it's less like Zone Control 4 and more of a new thing. Because I feel like at this point, so many people are, have played so much Zone Control 4 and they're kind of looking for a new thing. Like when I started making this, I was under the impression that people wanted Zone Control 4 plus. They wanted Zone Control 4 like everything except maybe a few additions or a few changes. Nothing too crazy. But now since it's kind of at this later stage, I'm kind of thinking that it's going to be more important to make the game different than Zone Control 4. So I'm going to be changing mainly the end game stuff, or like like different tech. Basically, is what I'm gonna say is there's gonna be different kinds of tech, and each of these different tech routes are gonna have different like ultimate kind of units that go along with their tech route. Not that you have to go down like any one tech route, but it's going to be a little bit easier to do so because of upgrades and all that. Um, like if you think about it, like Zone Control 4 kind of has like 3 different tech routes that kind of intermingle quite a bit. Like you have, you know, you can go mass infantry and just get a lot of bunkers, a lot of supply, try to overwhelm your opponents. You can go with a lot of SCVs and start doing a lot of turrets, like high upgraded turrets to throw and try to use that to your advantage to eventually take out your opponents. The third one is basically tanks. That's a little bit more phased out now with how endgame, you know, Zone Control 4 endgame is designed because of the faster speed and because upgrades go up higher and you know, and all that stuff. Basically, tanks I don't think are quite as useful late game unless you already have a bunch. Like it doesn't make sense to like, you know, invest so much throughout the game on units and then all of a sudden get some tanks. Like those tank upgrades are gonna be shit, and there's no reason to have those tanks because they're just gonna die. You know, unless you're able to pump a lot of money into those tanks to match the upgrades of the, you know, your opponent's infantry, those tanks aren't going to be as useful. But that should be like sort of like a another route to go. Nowadays, like there's the whole routes of like getting a lot of nukes, like when you start saving nukes and all that, and that becomes a thing because of how like how you can't really tell how many nukes a player has, so then you don't really know their strength, and then it's sort of like that gives them a pretty big advantage. Um, but yeah, I would say that once I get some of that going, um, there will be some beta testing. I thought it was going to be doing that sooner, but it looks like since I'm going to be probably adding a bunch of stuff to it, it might be, you know, like pushed off a little bit so that I can get some of this other stuff done. Since I do want to change it up quite a bit. Um, but yeah, I will have like a closed beta, and then the beta will get larger and larger as time goes on until it becomes a full release. Yeah, I think that there's some truth to having concern about you know, making it too complicated. You know, if I make it too complicated, it might close off a lot of people for just being too complex. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to be looking at that very carefully and trying to design it so that it isn't too much. Because yeah, it should stay relatively simple, but at the same time, it needs to kind of grow and become a little bit more complex. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm still kind of on the fence. Like maybe I do keep it kind of similar to how I have it, but then have um, you know, have like an alternate mode where it's more experimental and it has, you know, some like some more crazy high tech kind of stuff to it. Um, it's possible. I mean, that was kind of something I thought about for a long time. Was like, you know, I could make. Actually, yeah. Initially, I wanted to make basically Zone Control 4 with all these great additions to it in terms of quality of life and all that, but have like the units and stats and all that like pretty much the same. And then later on, I decided, well, let's like rebalance that a little bit because it's pretty, you know, it's not the greatest. And then I was going to eventually plan on doing like, you know, here's the Zone Control 4 version of this, and then here's the Zone Control 5 with all these additions. I might kind of do the same thing where it's just like Zone Control 4 but with rebalance and, you know, a couple of additions, and then have Zone Control 5 be more like or I'm sorry, and then have like an experimental branch that is more for like that crazy stuff. Um, in reference to King God, so you're interested in seeing how long like games go. So what I'm gonna shoot for is having basically games be easily decided early on, but if players are of the similar skill, then the game should go longer. So if two like players that are not used to the game, like not as good, they can but similar score, they can like duke it out for a while. Or like if it's too high, two players that have like a lot of APM, like have played a long time, know what they're doing. If they're both similar in how good they are at it, they can also duke it out for a long time. But if it's a player that's really good up against a player that's not very good, it should be a lot shorter. At least that's like the theory behind it. If all the players are on equal footing, it should go a little bit long, but I would say that I'm not trying to get the game to be super long either. The game should be, I'm probably aiming hopefully for something like 30 to 40 minutes. For average, probably about 30 minutes, but for like, if all the players are of equal skill, then maybe about 40 to 50. Or if it's very different, then maybe even, as short as like 20 minutes. But yeah, again, that's going to depend on the strategies employed and it's like just how things go. But it's going to be a different game, so there's going to be, it's not going to be the same old like you're doing the same thing for 20 minutes. I'm definitely not going to have that. That's for sure. Considering the recent success of Endgame with its high income option, have you considered implementing a similar concept in Zone Control 5? I would actually argue that so Zone Control 5's income, as it currently stands, was implemented before Endgame and before Napalm even came out. And Napalm kind of tried to do like a higher bounty on stuff. Endgame straight up doubled the regular bounty of CE, and I would say that Zone Control 5 is a little bit more on the side of Napalm stuff in terms of economy. But I would say it's actually quite a bit different than that too, because a lot of unit bounty in the normal Zone Control universe is tied up in bounty. You kill units, and those units give you money, and you use that money to make your army stronger. What I did for Zone Control 5 is not only do units give a little bit more income, the income that you get per second or whatever, per 7 seconds or whatever it is higher. So you get 10, I think it's right now set at like 10 minerals every like 4 seconds or something. It's quite a bit faster. And then also with the pickups and the mining minerals, your income is actually quite a bit bigger just from that as well. So it's a lot less bound to bounty. And the reason why I did that is because if it's bound to bounty, then it is bound to how good someone's lane is and how like, how much feeds the player getting. And if someone has a really weak player next to them, they're going to get a lot of score. And it's, maybe that's fine because it makes them feel good that they're doing so well, but then there's this whole like ego bragging side of it, like, oh, I'm doing so good, I'm so good at the game because I was able to get this score. And it's like, well, you happen to get someone that's newer or not as good next to you, whereas I had to lane the second best player in this room, like that type of thing. Whereas I'm trying to make it more even, so it's more about like, are you able to control the lane or not? If you can, then you get a boost. With that boost, you can then kill off your lane or whatever, and the game kind of grows from there in terms of economy to like, it puts people more on an even footing, which allows their skill to show instead of, oh, I got next to someone that's not as good, so I got some ultimate feed. Alright, I think that wraps it up for all the serious questions. I'm not going to answer any of those non-serious questions, but yeah, again, this went a little bit longer than I intended it to, but that's okay. Hope you guys enjoyed the presentation. I'm going to make sure I save the video, and I'll post it to YouTube when it's done. Thanks for joining me.